Hey kids, and welcome. It's conscious embodiment and a special episode because, oh my God, what a week. Dr. Michael Lennox here, your host for Conscious Embodiment, Astrology, and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. Yeah, it's hold on to your hat, Zoe. This is the this is the kahuna of the month that is the biggest month of the year because we've got a major marker moment with the equinox that's like literally today.
Yes.
Tomorrow is the new moon in Aquarius, not Aquarius, the new moon in the other sign, Aries.
Aries.
And it's the first of two new moons in the same sign. So we have an ersatz black moon situation with this new moon and the next new moon. And then the big news of the week and really of this and next year is Pluto changes signs.
Wow. Okay.
So we are going to talk all about that because all you have to do is turn on the news and see a little bit of an implication about what's cooking, heating up on the planet with Pluto's movement. So I'm going to talk all about that as well. Let's get started.
All right. The week of March 20th. Let's go.
So today is March 20th, and it is the Vernal Equinox, the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere is expressing autumn, the beginning of autumn. The solstices and the equinoxes are at the fundamental foundation of Western astrology. Western astrology is solar-based. Vedic astrology, sidereal astrology, astrology from the East is lunar-based. It's a very different system. But here in the West, the Greco-Roman sort of tradition from Zoroaster to Mesopotamia to Babylon to Greece to Rome to us is solar-based because we are or were an agrarian culture, that we became civilized through the movement from going from hunter-gatherer to storing food through agriculture that allowed the community to feed itself on stores of grain rather than to only be relying on hunting and gathering. This created civilization. This is what allowed large groups of people to come together in community and build groups that became our urban centers all across the old world. So it is the relationship between the earth and the sun and seasons that was not only the foundations of Western astrology, but the foundations of civilization itself. We look up to the sun and recognize the relationship between the sun and the earth as marker moments. Time to plant, time to reap, time to rest, time to begin again. And the four pillars of those ideas of time to fill in the blank are the relationship between the earth and the sun, where we start the astrological new year off in this vernal equinox in the north, where days and nights are of equal length. And in the northern hemisphere, we begin spring, the begin again reset moment of our consciousness of coming out of the death of winter into the rebirth of spring. And that's the marker moment we are in now.
I love spring. I didn't have an appreciation for it until I moved somewhere that had a real winter, like where everything dies. So then I could see all the little buds and, Bird
Well,
babies.
listen, everybody should have that opportunity because that is really, truly the beautiful power of spring. And I, on the other hand, grew up where there was winter and spring and certainly loved the buds. And, in my family, we would all hearken to, oh, the forsythia have bloomed. Spring has begun when these beautiful yellow flowers would show up all over the place in upstate New York and New Jersey. But when I moved to Southern California and let go of winter, I was very happy, decided I would never leave again because this little body doesn't like winter or the cold. But back to the springs and the power that not the springs, back to the seasons and the power that having them and moving through them and recognizing them is greater than just, oh, yay, spring's returning. It's really the pivotal moments in our collective, where our collective little brains, who all have a pineal gland inside the middle of them that responds to the moving, shifting sunlight, and we are chemically different at each of these pillar moments that mark our time through each year. So this is the Alpha Omega end of winter, beginning of spring, what we call the astrological new year. What that means is, from the Earth to the sun's perspective, this is a moment where for 3 days, the days and nights are of exact equal length. And then as we progress past this moment, the days will get longer and longer, inch by inch, in the northern hemisphere. The opposite happens in the southern hemisphere. So, with apologies to my folks from down under, Western astrology was born in the north, and so it got translated to you down under in a way that is unnatural through the power of colonial expansion. But in the evolution of the signs, it makes sense that in the wintertime, as we're coming into the darkness, that we finish the 12 signs in a mansion where it is, in fact, sort of, air quotes, darkest. Pisces, the collective, the oceans, the unconscious, the fallow that we have to lie in before moving out into form, right? So Pisces is when we think about endings and finishing up the year, and the culmination of the hibernation period of winter comes to a close. And then this begins the moment where we say, huzzah, the sun is going to rise again. We get to start up again. And it's a beautiful moment to mark both a sense of wholeness and completeness is the way we move, and that we are beginning again with a kind of start-off sensibility that would, be just like if we started our calendar year at the equinox as opposed to doing it in January. So it's a great moment to think about goals and ambitions for the year ahead because the Aries mansion says we start moving, we get going. It's fire sign and the first one, it's the cardinal fire sign. We get started up at this time. And so one of the best ways to honor this marker of the days and nights of equal length and the vernal equinox is to simply recognize your own wholeness, balance, and completeness. And I would say in a ritualized way. My ritual du jour for this equinox is always to draw a mandala, to create a creative, outsourced, visual representation of your own inner sense of harmony and balance. Just as a way of dialing in. It's like if the sun and the earth are expressing harmony and balance, and I'll express harmony and balance because I am a participant of the creation that exists between the sun and the earth. If they're doing it, I'm doing it.
Great reminder.
Yeah. Good. So, powerful moment. The days and nights will be of exact equal length for 3 days, and after the third day, the sun will begin to rise again. This is where 3-day resurrection myths came about and why Easter in Christianity happens around the vernal equinox, because that's where we got that idea that all deaths have a kind of 3-day abeyance period and then a rebirth always follows. So the power of that energetic dynamic of how life works is what we're celebrating in this equinox. Have at it. Somewhere I have written down the timing of the actual equinox moment on Monday the 20th, but I don't have it in front of me. So
I can look it up.
well, yeah, so maybe you look it up. Somewhere in the afternoon or evening hours on Monday the 20th is the moment when the sun crosses over into Aries. And just a handful of hours later, the moon pops into Aries. And on Tuesday, tomorrow, at 10:23 a.m. Pacific time, we have our new moon in Aries.
It says 5:24 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
That rings a bell. Okay,
Yeah.
so if she said 5:24 Eastern. Okay, perfect. So in the afternoon hours, the sun moves into Aries, and then tomorrow morning at 10:23, the moon pops in, and we have our first of two new moons in the sign of Aries. Because tomorrow's new moon is at 0 degrees of Aries. And in the time that the lunar cycle will have to play out, which is 28 and a quarter days, the sun and the moon will be gathering again in 4 weeks, only at the 30th degree of Aries. That's fascinating to me. First of all, it makes it a black moon.
For some reason, I thought there was only one moon for each sign, and that corresponded to the sign. But that's wrong.
Well, yes, that is typically what happens,
Okay.
but it's a very dynamic system that's consistently moving into new shapes.
Mhm.
And the full moon and new moon degree points, meaning where they happen, actually have a kind of cyclical outplaying where, in fact, it's called the Saros cycle, S-A-R-O-S, very complex, probably not worth the dive if any of you astro nerds are out there going, I want to learn about that. I urge you to back off from the Saros cycle. But I can put it simply, so that like with every new moon that happens throughout all of the lunar cycle after cycle after cycle, the degree point of where that new moon hits will like move backwards by about 1 degree, such that we move into a moment like this where that new moon degree backed up so much that the first new moon in the solar cycle happens immediately at 0 degrees. And therefore, when the moon completes its 28 and a quarter day cycle, the sun hasn't quite left Aries. But now what'll happen next month, Zoe, and no one, I don't know, your minds are all going to blow up with the math part of astrology. Because what'll happen next month is that the new moon will happen at the end of the solar mansion, not at the beginning, where then the new moon that kicks off a lunar cycle is going to have a full moon with the sun in a different sign. I'll be talking about this next month when it happens.
No, I'm catching what you're saying. So then how often does this 2 moons in a sign happen? Like every 12 months?
It's
Or
once in a blue moon.
once in a blue
You've
moon?
heard of the phrase, once in a blue moon? Well, that's how often it happens.
Once in a black moon?
Well, here's the difference. A blue moon is 2 full moons in the same sign within a calendar month. And a black moon is 2 new moons in the same sign in a calendar month.
Wow.
Now, I'm changing the definition a little bit because I don't give a shit about calendar month. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Who gives a shit about whether or not it happens in June or July or in the same month? I mean, that's just
whatever.
you're also talking about like, a 8,000 year tradition with a 400-year calendar.
Mm-hmm.
A calendar that's fucking broken.
Right.
Because it needs leap years and constant corrections, right? That's why sidereal astrology is actually better because it follows the moon, but that's a whole other topic. The point is that every once in a while, we get 2 lunations in the same sign, either a full moon or a new moon. When it's full, it's blue. When it's new, it's black. And for me, it just has to be the same sign twice in a row because then we interpret this to mean a double opportunity in the same consciousness. So if it's a new moon consciousness, that's about setting intentions and getting moving in new directions, in new ways. With Aries, it's like emphasis on new because it's the cardinal fire sign, the beginning of the year. It's like the new. And so if you've got a new moon in Aries tomorrow, we want to be setting intentions for the movement, the action, the startup, the process we want to create in the world, the I will jump off the cliff and get it going kind of intentions, because that's what we do in Aries. And then in 4 weeks, we'll do it again. Same archetype, double opportunity, first degree, final degree. It's a gorgeous kind of all-encompassed Aries moment where we get to dial into who do I want to be at this moment? The planet is falling apart. It needs me to start up and be carrying my courageous sort of gifts in tow and shooting out into the world to help. That's what we're setting intentions to do this week and again in 4 weeks. So I'll talk more about that when we get to that black moon, but understand that as we move through today, tomorrow, and Wednesday of this week, we are in new moon in Aries forward trajectory, and we're setting intentions as if it were the beginning of our sort of year ahead. A lot of extra power and assistance in this particular new moon to sort of fire us up, if you will. First of all, it's a fiery new moon. Aries is the first fire sign. Mercury, who carries our intentions with him, because intentions are a mental construct. We think of them, right? And that's a Mercury thing. So Mercury at 5 degrees of Aries is close enough to the new moon sun to be conjunct. That means that the power of our thought, perceptions, and intellectual participation is empowered during tomorrow's new moon. Mars is done with his retrograde cycle completely as of last week, so we're not being held back by any of the embodiment planets saying, okay, we're not quite ready to move forward. We are transformed in how we are approaching our goals and ambitions from a 7-month Mars retrograde that finished last week. So this double hit of Aries new moon ruled by Mars, right? Aries rules Mars. So this is Mars's new moon. Mars just finished a 7-month process last week. It's kind of like saying, okay, now that you can take off that 40-pound weight vest and you can change your clothes and, do your hair and put on a new outfit and do what you've been intending to do, maybe even last year, but you got stopped by process and delay and life on life's terms. This might be a moment to sort of re-up and say, okay, the landing place, not the landing place, the runway, the runway's clear. I'm ready to go. Set intentions with that kind of enthusiasm, power, and gusto. If love is part of your desire set for the year to come, I love the fact that Venus, the planet of love, is exactly conjunct the north node of the moon during this new moon. So it's in there that says that, okay, if part of your intention setting for this lunar cycle and the year ahead includes more love to be received by you, the actual North Star pointing forward point of the North Node has love in it or with it during this new moon. It's kind of like saying, set your intentions for anything, says the sun and the moon, and the solar system says, anything? And then we say, yes, anything. And Venus says, even love. Because I'm hanging out by the North Node of the moon in Taurus, ruling sign. I'm ready to bring you more love. It's in the mix. Now, I'm not sure exactly how to articulate this next piece of how this relates to the new moon and intention setting, because I'm sort of hinting to the next segment of the podcast, which is Pluto changing signs, which is big, big news. But it is true that the new moon hits as Pluto is hovering at the last degree of Capricorn. And that, in fact, at the new moon moment on Tuesday, Pluto is only 2 days away from changing signs because he does this on Thursday. So it's really, there's this powerful change that we're all going to be moving through the next 2 years that also starts up with this new moon in Aries. If the solar system were speaking to us right now, it would be, all right, kids, the shit is truly about to hit the fan. And when I say that shit, I mean like the next, say, 5 years, right? So the next 5 years gonna be crazy on the planet. It's just beginning now, and you can just turn on the news to see how unstable everything seems, and I promise you, it's only gonna get worse over the next 5 years. And so this is really the new moon, both this one and the black moon. There's beautiful purpose to having 2 in a row in Aries, the sign of I am, right? So the Aries sign is really very much about the individual journey. It's not you am or we am in Aries. It's I am. So it is an important new moon, this one and the black moon in 4 weeks, to declare your readiness to play your part, no matter what the changing landscape on the earth brings over the next 5 to 10 years. All of us are foot soldiers in the need to bring more light. And so this really becomes a moment of, yes, kids, it's that difficult. Yes, it's only going to get worse. And yes, we all have a part to play. We use this new moon moment to say, I know who I am. I know I'm ready to get out there and get moving. Here's how I want that to look. Set those intentions, and then understand from this point, it's game on. Oh, God. Pluto. This is so big, kids. I've been saying this on the podcast. I certainly said it in my global healing meditation for the month of March, where I'm in this kind of personal, I was going to say existential crisis. It's not that. It's not nearly as deep as that. But I know you'll get this, though, because you and I have known each other a very long time in different iterations of our connection. And I think you know well how you've seen me hold my vision for astrology in the world a lot over the years, even from back when I would talk about astrology at the Spiritual Center where we first met. And I have always been a voice for hope, a voice for turn away from the fearful superstitions that astrology can help foster, to look for the solution. Like, that's who I am as a person in my own personal life, and that's who I am as a teacher. And so I'm bumping up against this sort of difficult, like, personal existential moment of like, okay, I know that I'm a voice for a certain amount of people to follow me for guidance, contextualization, and hopefully also loving, hopeful support about how we navigate. And I have to start talking about the real possibilities of what all of the planet's changing signs are going to engender on the planet over the next 5 to 10 years. It's gonna be brutal. And it's going to be far worse than anything we're seeing now. And even that troubles me to say out loud. Not for me personally. I'm good at being, in the world and not of it, but not everybody is. And right. I want to be the voice of hope, but I also have to be the voice of, look, kids, it's going to get even more difficult. Take a look at what's happening right now. Pluto's in Capricorn, but moving into Aquarius Thursday. And this is going to happen several times over this year and next year, right? This isn't a one and done. Pluto's going to hang out in the early degrees of Aquarius and the latter degree of Capricorn for 2 years. So it's really interesting to me that as Pluto is leaving the sign of structure, Capricorn, and entering the sign of technology, Aquarius, we're already seeing 2 major outer world impacts of that changing of signs. The one that's positive is the emergence of all of this technology in the last bunch of months that's going to take the world by storm over the next decade. I'm talking about AI and the chat AI and all that stuff that rose up in the last few months. That's a Pluto in Aquarius construct, because Aquarius invented the internet, digital technology, and the way we are all connected through social media. That's an Aquarian ideal. Capricorn is the sign that invented world structures. So hearken back to 2006 and early 7, and astrologers everywhere, me included, were saying things like, look, kids, Pluto is getting ready to leave Sagittarius and enter Capricorn. That's scary because Capricorn rules structures. And and when I say structures, social structures. And so the moment Pluto entered Capricorn, we had the housing market started to fail as well as the banks. And 2007 and 8 was a major recession. And it also marked Pluto entering Capricorn. So it's fascinating that Pluto at the 30th mastery degree of Capricorn also showed us a major bank failing that was even scarier in a way because it kind of came out of left field. It was a bit unexpected, but it's exactly Pluto in Capricorn. So for me as an astrologer, I look at that and I go, well, of course that would happen.
Wow.
As Pluto is moving out of structure and into internet. But also understand that as Pluto enters Aquarius these 2 years, there may be reflections of destructive energies, because that's what Pluto brings. He destroys in order for rebirth to occur. So that we will see over the next months, I think, difficult, scary, and frightening Plutonian consciousness in technical, digital, internet realms. And with Pluto in Capricorn and going back into Capricorn, into Aquarius, and back into Capricorn and into Aquarius, all those times in the next 2 years, more structural failures like banks that go when no one was looking.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's scary.
So death to tech.
Well, death to tech. First of all, I love the question and I love the way you phrased it. It's adorable. Let me start a little bit more archetypal.
Great. Yeah, I just want a little more clarity.
Well, archetypally, what we're going to experience with 2 decades of Pluto in Aquarius is the death to separation between consciousness and a movement towards more collective possibilities. Now, we are in a place on the planet where we are just in enmity, polarization, and destruction. So I'm not saying in 20 years you're going to see kumbaya, because I think we're generations away from kumbaya. But I in the land of hopefulness, one of the things I think that 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius can bring is the coalescing of peace movements where people start working together more earnestly to bring about social change in a way that can't quite happen now because we're kind of fractured, Black Lives Movement's over there, women's movements over there, gay and trans movements are over there. It's all sort of being, lifted up, but in a fractured sort of way. I think that one of the hopeful things that will happen with Pluto in Aquarius is the joining up of various movements that have been separated into more joint efforts. But I do think that since tech is how we rely on our global community to exist and work, that tech is where we will see far more breakdowns, like terrorism. It's already started to happen. There was a town somewhere 2 weeks ago that got shut down. I didn't pay too much attention what it was, but there was like you can Google this, kids. It was sometime in early March. Some town got predated upon somehow, and they lost all their technology infrastructure for a couple of days. I think there's going to be a lot of things like that in the next 20 years. But the positive impact is Aquarius promises a global community. And for the people who are interested in that, there's an opportunity over the next 2 decades to help move us more towards that idea of peace for all humanity. But again, when I think of the value of the age of Aquarius, I always have to then say my cutism, which is, look, kids, we got 2,000 years to get it right. Because these are trees we are not going to see the shade of, but we still have to plant them anyway. You know, when Pluto was in Aquarius the last time, we had the creation of the U.S. Constitution in 1787, the French Revolution in 1789, and the Industrial Revolution kind of exploded into its, what it became. That all happened the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. So amplify that up with, 250 years of technology and advancement and movement, we are going to see extraordinary things happen on the planet that lift up the possibility for, first of all, technology to save us. Because if anything's going to save us, it's going to be technology or we're doomed. And movement towards, groups coming together to serve together to help move sort of social justice further along the way. But in terms of 2023 and 2024, mostly we're just going to be fielding what it's like to watch Pluto's movement continue to help rip apart the structures that no longer work so that we can, in fact, build the potential for a community, a world community that works and that cares for all. So understand that this is only a taste of Pluto into Aquarius, because he's going to move in on Thursday. He's only going to go 20 minutes in, 20 minutes of space, right? One minute is 1/60th of a degree of space. So 20 minutes is 1/6 of a degree. So between now and May 1st, Pluto's going to move this tiny little bit and then immediately turn around retrograde and re-enter Capricorn on June 11th. So in some ways, we're really more concentrated in at least this section of 2023 with a kind of hint towards the future, like with these technologies being revealed to the world and other things that we haven't seen that will break down in the next month or so. I promise they'll happen. There will be world events that will reflect Pluto in Aquarius, I assure you. But then by virtue of him coming right back into Capricorn, we are not done with wrapping up the sort of death, rebirth possibilities in structure land. So I think that makes the world events more frightening, like especially when it comes to financial markets and the stability that we require in our banking to sort of feel safe. So, again, I'm sort of left in this sort of position of saying, I still have hope, guys. I still believe in the power of the Aquarius age. I still believe fully that I came, and that if you're listening to this podcast, that you came into your embodiment at this time to help and assist, whatever that woo-woo language means. If you resonate with that at all, let it lift you up and support you so that when you look out at the world and you see it going madder and jumping off a cliff more, that you don't jump off the cliff after it, but you stand firm on top of the cliff and say to yourself, I got this, I'll help. And then go help. Mm-hmm. Have at it, kids.
This Saturday, March 25th, Dr. Michael's class Radical Forgiveness will begin. This class will take place virtually via Zoom for 4 Saturdays starting at 11 a.m. Pacific. This is a popular class where Dr. Michael will take you from the story into anger, through grief, and onto the other side where forgiveness is possible. If you have something you need to release, this class may be for you. See you there. More information on michaellennox.com. All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show.
So before we hear the dream for the day, Zoe, I got an email question.
Yes.
It wasn't actually deliberate. In other words, she wrote to me at my email address. She's been a student of mine. And I asked her permission to answer the question on the air. Although she did not give me specifics to illuminate the question, hopefully this answer will help her a little bit. And then if she, wants to email me and tell me the specific thing that happened in her dream, I will answer it. But here is her question. Rachel asks, wow, it's the first sentence of her email. Wow. So what does it mean when you do something truly inhumane in a dream? After doing said thing, I even looked at myself in the mirror in the dream with an absolutely horrified expression on my face, an expression I've never had in my life. No, I'm not consciously aware of something I've done, at least not like that. Yes, I've taken your shadow class. I love that. So, first of all, I should say this about the mirror in the dream and why she referenced my shadow class. I teach mirror work. It's a big part of how I help people do shadow work, that you go literally to the mirror and often with different sort of techniques for tapping into your connection with self. And it's a very powerful way of incorporating intimate work with self into shadow work. So going to the mirror is a big part of how I teach people to do some self-actualization. So she's funnily taking that tool into her dream state. Because, in fact, if she had come to me and said, oh, I did this inhumane thing, I might say, well, go to the mirror and have a conversation with yourself about it.
So she's checked the boxes already. Check some boxes.
Right. She's doing She's doing the shadow work. She's checking the box. But here's something that happens all the time in dreams about things that in life that we would call bad, in dreams can actually be quite good. Death is an obvious one. We don't like death in life. It means grief.
Yeah.
Right? But in a dream, it's a powerful symbol of rebirth and change.
But what if you're committing murder, which is what I'm sussing from this email?
Right. But think about like the serial killer archetype. In my first book, Dream Sight, I talk about the serial killer that might show up in your dreams as a sacred part of your psyche that says, I will help and assist you to grow in wisdom through time by helping kill off old aspects of consciousness that are no longer viable and don't serve you.
Okay.
So if you're doing the killing, Zoe, your witness consciousness is saying, I must transform this. And then you look at the person you're killing and decide what they're representing in you. But your effort to kill isn't a bad thing. Though if you try to transform a relationship in your waking life by killing them, you would probably go to jail.
Right.
Dreams about rape are very confusing because we would absolutely declare rape as inhumane and egregious and damaging and violent and awful. But if in symbolic land, joining together of bodies is about integration and rape is about power and a forced sort of interaction, then even rape becomes a positive symbol of change and transformation that comes upon you whether you're ready for it or not. And then we would use the participants in the scenario to look at what aspects of your psychology were working together. Now, I don't know what Rachel dreamed of, but let's pretend that it was that she killed somebody or, murdered a puppy. She then goes to the mirror in the dream because some part of her consciousness is saying, I have to figure out what this impulse is coming from or where it's coming from or what value it has.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, Rachel, if you're listening, either email me the event and I'll say something about it in my response email, but take a look at the event itself, remove the judgment if it were an actual real life event, and try to vibe with the symbolic sensibility that's being expressed by the inhumane event that isn't how you would judge it if it were in your waking life. All dreams are for us, and therefore even the inhumane act can be interpreted symbolically, usually to represent that some powerful change or transformation is taking place.
Today we have an email-in dream from Sanam. It's a little chaotic, so that's why I wanted to bring it.
Okay.
Okay. Her email says, I had a dream last week. I saw a horse first with 2 heads and 1 body, and then 4 heads and 1 body. And one of the heads was a baby horse, brown with black hair. I said in my dream I'm going to take care of them, and I did, walking with them everywhere like they were my pets. And I was looking for a job and a home. I was walking with them in a hotel that was really big and so colorful, with different types of people and some dancing, most likely happy. I fed them with carrots and apples from heaven, according to a conversation with a friend I had in my dream. I asked her, how do you know this apple is from heaven? She said that her mom had told her, and this is her mom who had passed almost 6 years ago. I'm going through a very rough time in my life. I broke up with my boyfriend, left my house, my cat, and my heart back in Texas, and moved to Utah last Sunday. I do not know what's going to happen with my life at all after planning to spend the rest of my life with that person. Could you please do this dream on your podcast? Thank you again for being who you are and being here on this planet at the same time I am. You're a gift. Sanam.
Aww. Well, first of all, wow, what a week you've had, Sanam.
Wild.
So I'm delighted to hold some space for you as you are flipping out as your life is breaking down and transforming itself. So thank you for trusting me, and thank you for the sweet, kind words that you also offered. So let's start with horses, because horses are a representation of power, our power and ability to move through the world powerfully. And Sanam has just stopped her powerful movement because she's got to sequester after chopping off, big chunks of what her life looked like, the day before. So, because we refer to horsepower, right? Horsepower is synonymous for us, at least in the last 100 or so years, of how to measure an amount of power. So we're in a horse that starts off with 2 heads and then 4. So I'm not going to parse out what the 2 heads or what the 4 heads. I mean, we could go down any path we want, but in a general sense, since we now learned that Sanam's movement through life in a powerful way, her horsepower has been chopped down and eradicated. But one of the 4 heads, I'm suddenly thinking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The four heads of the horse, one of them shows something that's kind of new, a new sense of power that might be possible because the one of the 3 heads is young, is new, right? So then if I put my association with the symbols that I'm hearing and taking in with the information that Zoe, that you offered at the end of Sanam's expression about how difficult this moment is, then I can confidently say how you have moved about the world powerfully is no longer viable, but in the perspectives that are in you, one of them is new and will be the horse that leads you out of this very difficult place, right? So you want to take care of them. You want to care for the part of you that is powerful, even if this moment is unpowerful. That's not a word. Disempowered. That's the word I'm looking for. Right? So, like, okay, disempowerment shows up in the dream by virtue of the fact that you don't have a job and you don't have a home, right? That's another symbol of right now I'm disempowered. I have no home. I have no job. I'm looking for same. And I'm caring for this sense of my personal power that I'm probably not riding that horse right now because it's not a horse riding moment. It's a looking for a job and a looking for a home moment. Right? But she's caring for that part of her for when her power returns. You following me? She's caring for them like they were her pets while she's looking for a home. Then we change to an image in the dream that actually talks about the transition that Sanam is in. It's actually kind of beautiful. It's a big hotel. Hotels are about temporary senses of self while shift and change and transformation is taking place. And in this place, in this hotel, there's color, there's joy, there's access to feeding the horses, carrots and apples. Where do they come from? Heaven. So yay. Okay. Now we get a little message here about, well, how do we know this apple is from heaven? Well, my mother told me.
The friend's mother.
But still, it's the mother, right? The friend in the dream who offers the apple is also offering the wisdom about where the apples come from. And it's not someone else's dream. This is an aspect of Sanam. So Sanam is meeting an aspect of herself who is saying, eat this apple, it's from heaven. But what do we know about women who give apples to others from the fairy tale lexicon that I'm so fond of teaching from? That's right. Back away from the apple, from the lady. Ladies who give apples are witches in disguise. Mothers who give apples are feeding you from their intergenerational damage.
Wow.
That apple might not be from heaven. It might be the intergenerational, habitual way of relating to men, I'm thinking, because there's a breakup in Sanam's life at this moment. But I would rather this image be considered as, I want to not eat that apple. I don't want to follow the pattern that was handed to me multi-generationally. And that apple presentation, it's like if Sanam is off in the hotel room where she gets to shuck off these habitual ways of interacting in relationship that need to be transformed, then what she doesn't want to do is eat the apple of the past patterns because she fancies that it comes from heaven, because I don't think it does. So, Sanam, keep feeding your horses the carrots and apples. Don't eat the apple from heaven. That's a trick in disguise. And seriously, I wish you all love and grace as you move through this rather difficult transitional moment in your life. Have at it.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.